And we are back again with COVID Cabal. What is up, everybody? If you are here, leave a comment in the chat. If you're here, leave a comment in the chat. Leave a fucking comment in the chat. I want to see who's here. I want to see who's showing up with 10 minutes. 10-minute warning. Not even 10-minute warning. I want to see who's really devoted and committed to COVID Cabal. That they got it. They got the notification on. Whatever, it doesn't matter what's happening. Anything could be happening in their life. They could have an extremely busy day going on. The second that notification for COVID Cabal comes on, they're like, fuck that. Fuck my appointments. Fuck all my friends. Fuck my family. I'm watching COVID Cabal. That is what I am looking for right now. I'm looking for people so dedicated to COVID Cabal that they are not even going to, their life doesn't exist outside of COVID Cabal. I can control your time. It's 2 a.m. I say COVID Cabal. People waking up. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that kind of devotion. What is up? What is up, AG? AG up in Calgary. What's going on? What's going on? We got J Dog. Let's fucking go. We got Seth. COVID Cabal. Let's fucking go. We got Day Game Storm. Yes. LOL is right. LOL is right. And we got Uncle Guns right here. Like, comment, and subscribe. Well, gentlemen, obviously, this is a great COVID Cabal for me. I have a little bit of a old school COVID Cabal going on here. We're gonna have something to drink on today's stream. No, we don't do that very often these days. But well, you know, maybe we're doing it because of that. Maybe we're doing it because of the COVID Cabal right here. We got a bottle of rosé champagne. That's what we're doing here. This is Bernard Longclass. I gotta be honest, guys. I don't know anything about this producer. I never really learned a lot about specific champagne producers. I just didn't. It's a blind spot. Champagne and Burgundy in general are very complicated regions, almost like a whole area of specialization on its own. But it's a rosé. It's 60% Chardonnay, 30% Pinot Meunier, and I guess 10% Pinot Noir, which is kind of interesting because the first two grapes, 90% of this, are white grapes. And yet, it's a rosé, although albeit a very shallow rosé. Oh boy. Let's see what, okay, good. It would be very embarrassing if this champagne exploded all over my computer. All right, people. Well, this is to my so toast to my son. Yeah, I'm gonna top this one off. This toast to my son Thomas, who was born just a couple days ago, and that was a pretty cool experience. So my wife has always had fast births, and I'm sure some of this is genetic, right? Like women tend to have, it's not consistent all the time, but they tend to have birth patterns in the sense that some women have longer births, some women have shorter births, and doesn't mean that every single birth is going to be the same, but it's because the baby has a role to play with it too, as well as other things that the mother's doing. So I think my wife probably is more likely on her own to be fast at giving birth, but she's also just incredible with preparation. So she goes and sees specific chiropractors who deal with maternal health. So it's like pelvic alignment. She does all sorts of like yoga and meditation. Like when we prep for it, she really knows how to work with her body. So with our first two kids, these were very fast births, like 2.5 hours. Those births are so fast that when you study births, they're not included in even like a range of possible births. Like a fast birth is considered to be 5 hours. This last birth was less than an hour. It was less than an hour. And I had to deliver the baby myself, which was a pretty cool experience. I'm not going to lie. And thank you for the congratulations, guys. Thank you for the congratulations. It was a pretty cool experience. I don't want to claim I was on the phone with the midwife during it. You know, she'd ask me questions. I'd tell her what was going on. I don't want to pretend I'm some sort of birth expert, although maybe I can put that on my resume now. But you know, I did have to take the cord out from around his neck, so I had to do some stuff, but it wasn't like very tight. It wasn't like some big drama or anything like that. So I gotta say, like, having a fast birth is pretty cool because I mean, your life changes really quickly, but birth is like a big ordeal. I mean, obviously, it's a big ordeal for the mother, but it's a big ordeal for the father too. I mean, you're like people are up, you're up for hours and hours and hours. You know, it's kind of like a long, drawn out ordeal. Whereas this is like fast. This is like we barely even know what's happening before. I knew it was happening only because of what she experienced in the past because she's had fast birth. So because she had no contractions, she had no first stage labor at all. It was water broke and she was pushing. And literally the only thing I knew, and I told because one of the midwives was like, "Well, she had any contractions?" I'm like, "She hasn't, but she's gonna have this baby in 30 minutes." Because one of the things that you look for is emotional signposts. Right? People don't tell you about that because it's not in the medical world. They don't really talk a lot about that. But if you go into holistic stuff, you look for emotional signposts for women, and how a woman behaves tells you how far along the labor is. And I can tell you that when my wife's water broke, she was being such a fucking bitch. She was being fucking awful. And I was looking at her, I'm like, this isn't like you. Something's going on. I knew something was going on. She was acting weird all evening. So anyway, cheers to the kid, cheers to my wife. They're both doing great. He looks like his older sister. My middle son looks you notice like if you have enough kids, you start to notice that like there's like a certain look. It must be like the combination of certain genes from each parent. Because keep in mind, I know this is like all digressive rambling, but you know, I, I just grant me this enthusiasm, right? But it's interesting when you have a sibling. We always say like, oh, you know, we're all equally related to all of our siblings, right? Because they all both come from the same parents. But that's actually not true. Every child gets 50% of the mother, 50% of the father. I think actually technically the mother gets a little bit more, but it's whatever. It's close to 50-50 of mother and father. But which 50 and 50 is it? You could theoretically, it's like a bell curve, so they all kind of average at having half the same DNA as each other, right? All the siblings. But some siblings can be like statistically, I mean, theoretically they could be identical. Statistically, they might be more like 80% genes in common, or they might only be like 20%. So there's a range between it. And I think phenotype, they always say like phenotype isn't genotype, and that's true, but I think it's often used in a deceptive manner where like phenotype corresponds a lot to genotype. It's just that there's a lot more than phenotype. So anyway, it's kind of interesting because my oldest son is he looks kind of like he looks a lot like me when I was a kid, like blonde hair, except he has brown eyes, but they're like a brownish green eyes. And I think, but he has wide eyes, like big wide eyes, which are kind of like from not my wife, but from my wife's father's family. It's kind of interesting. Whereas my daughter, and I think my new son, they have this different kind of look where they might have like my brow, but more like her mother's side. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting. We'll see. But yeah, it was a cool experience. Another thing to put on the list there. And I do have a picture of the little guy if you didn't see it on Twitter. So there he is, hanging out. He's ready to come out as fast as he possibly could. So thanks for sparing us that ordeal. So I'll talk a little bit about births real quick here, just in general. Because now we're outnumbered. I'm on like super dad mode here. And guys, don't worry. This is part of COVID Cabal because we're gonna go into all the demographic stuff. But I saw this come up the other day. because the demographic issue is really only going to be fixed by people having babies, right? And I don't know, are we going to get to the point where people are having babies in artificial wombs? Maybe they'll be doing some of that, but what are going to be the outcomes for that babies? Are they going to be raised by robots? I don't know. This stuff is kind of dystopian. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It probably will to some extent. But there's going to be a lot of tension about that in society. But this is an interesting point here, right? 5 kids in 10 years is 9 months pregnant, 5 times 1 year nursing. Almost 9 out of the 10 years, your wife will be exhausted, physically limited, or both. Are you ready to step up, Western man? Well, first off, this isn't like the Dynamic Man podcast, so I'm not going to get too much into this stuff from the relationship standpoint. But yes, it is a lot of work, but I don't like this characterization. 9 out of the next 10 years, your wife will be exhausted, physically limited, or both. Like it's going to be like a miserable time. I don't like any characterization of having life with kids being this sort of like miserable sacrifice. It's not a fucking sacrifice, okay? It's not a sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice. Sacrifice is like giving up something really valuable. It's not a sacrifice. It's a gift. Everything is about framing. The reason that this like whole natalist argument isn't working is because people are like, well, look, you just got to suck it up. You just got to suck it up and do it. You got to suck it. Otherwise, civilization's going to die. Like if you don't have a kid, it's over. Sorry, but this doesn't persuade people. People are going to operate on an individual basis. Very few are going to be motivated. Very few women in particular are going to be motivated to have kids because you're telling them that they have an obligation to do it. This is it. J-Dog saying it perfectly here. They're a gift and an investment. They're an investment. Okay. Is it more work? Yeah, it's more work. It's more work. I mean, whatever. Like, whatever. So what? Grow the fuck up. I'm not saying that to like contradict myself to what I just said. But I mean, like, you're missing out. It's work, but it's like joy. Like it's a beautiful thing. It's a really, really beautiful thing. And if the implication of this is that oh, she'll be exhausted, physically limited, or both, what does that mean? Does that mean that she's not going to be able to like have sex ever? She's not gonna. I mean, it is true that nursing decreases a woman's breast drive. Breast drive. No, it decreases the breast size. It decreases the sex drive. But so what? If you have a good relationship between each other, you're still going to be having sex all the time. Doesn't matter. It's only a thing that's an issue when you have failed to properly structure the relationship. And again, this is stuff for like another show, right? Because COVID cabal, we talk about all the but everything that's happening in the West right now, and now it seems like a little bit in the East too, right? Not that one, sorry. And now they have these Japanese cities that are going to be migrants from Africa, and they're going to settle all these migrants over in Africa. The usual suspects are obviously doing all this stuff. And I want to emphasize something here, like, because when we get into these conversations, I think it's just important to be like, I don't be very direct about all this stuff, right? You have Western countries, which are, historically predominantly white, East Asian countries, predominantly East Asian, right? All this stuff. And a lot of the people coming in are either from, Middle East, India, or Africa. I just want to say this. I'm not trying to be like a little cuck out or anything like that, but I don't hate these people. I don't hate people from those countries. I actually think like a lot of, certainly in the previous waves of immigration from those countries, the Western countries, I think you actually had some pretty good immigrants, right? I think a lot of people, a lot of Indians left India in the beginning because they really thought India, they did not like what was going on in India. They didn't like it was a low trust society. And I think it's a unfortunate thing, but you have a lot of the waves that are coming over now that it's just a very different attitude from those initial waves. And this is the kind of stuff that applies to like JD Vance's wife, who was born in California. She's in her late 30s. She's been here a long time. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Am I being a cuck? I'm just saying I've met a lot of these people and have always had good experiences with them. But there's been obviously like insane waves coming over, especially in the last decade. It's just it always sucks because you have a lot of good people who come over and then they get overwhelmed with the bad. But the point of this kind of stuff here is that whoever is orchestrating this, there's no reason to orchestrate this plan, right? There's no point in orchestrating this plan except to create some kind of chaos. And I think Japan, I don't know, Japan has been able to resist this for a really long time. So I view this actually in a positive light, because the fact that they're pushing this right now in Japan shows that like this is like fucking YOLO. It's like fucking YOLO. We're just doing it all right now. We got to do as much as we possibly can before it's too late. And it's very possible they killed Shinzo to do this exact thing. Absolutely. So yeah. Well there that's right. This is completely right, Jonathan. there's the assimilated and the unassimilated. So this stuff is really relevant when it comes to Britain. And Britain is the focus of what I want to talk about today, because what's going on in Britain is huge. It's huge. And this is all the downstream effects of MAGA. And I've been saying this for a while. You guys watching this, you guys who have been watching COVID Cabal know I'm consistent with this. And we are going to be talking about this more and more through this entire season of COVID Cabal, because honestly, I'm curious what's going to happen after 2026. I'm curious what's going to happen after 2026, because I really do see all signs pointing to 2026 being the decisive year in America. And I think this whole, by 2028, it'll be the same in Europe. It's all of Trump's term is going to lead to the collapse of the cabal, not only domestically, but internationally. But I think domestically in America, it's done next year. Everything is set up for that. And I've been saying this since the beginning, but for whatever you decide to look at when it comes to the Astro is also pretty clear with it, that all the rot that we've seen last 23 years, right, which is about what we would say where things really went off the rails, has been apparently all these outer planets in Pisces, and that all ends in early 2026, February 2026, as far as I understand. So look, some of you guys may not buy Astro. That's fine. I don't live my life based on astrology. I find it interesting. I find it especially interesting that things that I can see happening, like one of the reasons I like astrology is because I like to check my own sort of instinct and intuition on things with the Astro. And the correlation is really pretty good most of the time, where I'm like, yeah, I have to, by this time, I have to start doing this. And then I'll have an Astro reading and it'll say like, yeah, this is what's going to happen at that time that's going to facilitate this. So it's like, I that's for both personal stuff, but also macro. You guys know, since I started doing this again earlier in the year, I've been saying consistently that I see, I was saying I think Trump has till basically summer of 2026 to have a big hit. So everyone wants it to happen now. I'm like, the big hit has to come like first 2 quarters of 2026 latest. He has until then. If it doesn't happen that by then, he's going to have problems, because he's going to still be mired in the stuff for the bicentennial and the midterms. My only modification to what I said with that is that, and it's not actually even like it's a modification. Like it's almost like it just says, be a little bit more specific now as more time's going on, is it may not be that everything is done by the summer of 2026, but he is going to, by the end of 2026, with the midterms, new census, he's literally going to fucking destroy the Democratic Party completely. Okay, he's going to completely destroy it. All the investigations and everything, it seems like that's going to go way into the midterms at this point. So there may be a really big wave of stuff, a big wave of arrest early next year, but there's going to be more happening throughout the entire year, probably. But the big hit is going to happen earlier in the year where the mask is kind of pulled off. And I think the rest of it is going to be more like a processing and a revealing, maybe in the same way that like the war ended, World War II ended, right? Summer of 45, whatever, May, August, whatever front you want to talk about. But Nuremberg was in 46. It's kind of that sort of thing. Like it was that, like World War II's aftermath did not really end until 40. Like you could argue longer than that, but 46 was still like mass migrations of people because of the war. You really should almost think of 46 as being part of the war because everything was still feeling the effects of the war. So that to me, 2026 is going to be that year. That's what's happening. That's how everything's being set up. And what is going on in the UK is going to be a major, major part of this. So what you're seeing right now in the UK is pretty incredible. There is organic grassroots protest all over the country where they're raising Union Jack flags, English flags, and people are freaking out. The government's freaking out. We've said for a while that the gay flag was really like the flag of like Zog. Like the gay flag was really the flag that they cared about because they would fly it everywhere. They'd fly it at the embassies. They'd fly it at military parades. I remember going down, being in Piccadilly, and it was just gay flags all over the place. And that's the global empire. It's that fucking rainbow flag right there. This has nothing to do with real homosexuality. It just has to do with their agenda. But there's grassroots stuff going on right now in Britain, and I'm hearing from people on the ground in Britain. This is legit stuff. The Brits are going to flip out pretty soon. The English, in particular, leading the way with this. They are going to flip out. They're going to flip out, and the election is apparently not for a few more years. I don't know, guys. I don't know if this is gonna if it's gonna endure that long. I mean, Reform's gonna win the election. Did Nigel Farage get released? Because here's the thing: Nigel Farage was super based, like absolutely super based, great guy, and then he started acting and talking like a faggot. It's like I'm like, no cap, guys, no cap. He was acting like a faggot. I am not. I hate that kind of Gen Z lingo, but he was acting like he was captured. And I've heard that he did have handlers, or it's probably not the right way to put it. I don't know if it was blackmail or whether it was a threat to his family. You can accomplish a lot of these things either way, but it was clear that he was like becoming really weak-kneed, and they were trying to co-opt him. And they were co-opting him. I mean, a lot of the issues in Reform with like Rupert Lowe being kicked out, Nigel Farage being against Tommy Robinson, this was stuff that was indicative of the fact that Reform was being captured through the capture of Nigel Farage, who really that was a big loss because he had the name recognition, the oration skills, he had everything really set up to be able to lead a proper reform. Well, it seems like now his tone is shifting. Now he's talking about remigration, and this is the question, right? In a city of London, links cannot be dismissed. So here's the question: like, why is now he's talking a lot harsher now? Now he's talking about remigration. Remigration is on everybody's mind, right? It's on everybody's mouth now. People are talking about it more and more. I think it's an inevitability. The only question, as I've said, is the scale, right? What's the scale of the remigration? But he's talking much more aggressively, and that happened after J.D. Vance going to Britain. So there's been some conversations, some chatter that Farage has been offered protection of sorts. So whatever Zog had on Farage, maybe it's being pushed back against by the United States. I think a lot of people, the United States would, of all the fucking foreign adventures that we were in, I don't know about you guys, I would personally love to run some guns to English resistance. I think that would be very, very interesting if the United States started arming English resistance groups. But you know what? I mean, it's funny. It doesn't have to even get that far. Like, I don't. We could collapse the British government if we wanted to in a moment. So the only reason that we wouldn't do something like that would be because of other variables in play. Games of deception. And as much as I think a lot of us would love to just like rush to the finish line with it, we have to allow things to play itself out. But this is really auspicious. You saw similar kind of uprisings in Ireland like last month. I really think this is going to gain a lot of steam over the next year. And I don't think you're going to have any of these. I mean, let's see this for a second here. But I think 2028 is a pretty realistic, reasonable benchmark for the overthrowing of these governments across Europe. I think 2028 is reasonable. You have the French election, 2027. You have, maybe British elections have to be in 2028. I think that they can be called earlier, though. Right now, it's looking to me like Britain is actually closer along with this stuff. I just don't think that they can keep pushing it much longer. You know what I mean? I don't think that they can continue. They will continue to do it. Don't get me wrong, but the backlash is coming. And this is one of the things, like, I'm not going to read to you my whole little spiel here, but this is like pretty important. Scroll to the bottom here, because this is my whole thing, like me talking about how everybody's like dooming. Oh, it's over. We can't save it. It's done. We can't do anything. It's over. It's not over. It's not over. You have to be a little irrational. You have to be a little irrational. You have to be a little bold. You have to have a little bit of belief, and you have to really, like, to some extent, not care about what happens to you. You have to believe in something more than yourself. Look at this. Look at the bottom here. 4.5 million registered voters switched from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. This is before even everything has like really intensified. I mean, they are just so fucking like, they're so done. They're not going to exist anymore. I love hearing this stuff. It's like we have to watch out because Democrats might take the House in 2020. Like, just shut the fuck up. You like, get your head out of the sand. We are in a paradigm shift. Things are changing across the entire Western world and really the world in general. There is so much different stuff happening. There's a different consciousness. They're done. They've committed tons of crimes and they don't have power. They only have enough power to delay and sabotage. They don't have enough power to win. The only real question is whether they have enough power to flip the game board over. And I'm starting to believe they have less and less chance of that. Another topic just to kind of jump over to real quick. We, apparently there is this database check for the war in Ukraine, right? Not so surprising. Ukraine and the European Union sabotage this peace agreement. Zelensky's saying he's not going to surrender. He's not going to accept the terms. That's not surprising, right? It's not surprising that Zelensky would not be accepting Russia's terms of abandoning the Donbass, right, to engage in negotiations. But all they can really do is just delay. But these are serious casualties. Now, I have heard some pushback on these numbers. One of the things to me about it is it's not that these numbers aren't believable for me, but sanitary losses, I think, are more accurate than dead and missing. Missing maybe is very high. I don't know what the desertion numbers are. I know that there's been decent levels of desertion with Ukraine. Sanitary losses, by the way, and this is how Russia has calculated losses. And I think Ukraine maybe does it too. Whereas it's like irretrievables. So, and this is important because when we say like wounded, oh, we had this many killed, this many wounded. But if you're wounded and you get a piece of shrapnel in your arm, you get a Purple Heart, well, you can go back to combat in a couple of weeks. You're not really a loss. You're wounded in like a situation, but you're not a loss on the board. A loss on the board would be your leg got blown off. So now you are an irretrievable casualty, right? Called sanitary losses. That's to me 1.7 million. I can believe that. I'm not saying one way or another. You know what I mean? One thing I will say is, despite the fact that I am very pro-Russian, in the sense that I believe that Russia's cause, casus belli, is justified, and I think I understand a lot of the big picture stuff with this. It doesn't really matter that much, in the sense that Russia obviously still lies. Russia has their own propaganda. Like the Duran, it's Russian propaganda, or BRICS propaganda. Let's put it that way. It's BRICS propaganda. I don't have any dislike for Alex and Alexander of the Duran, but the more I've listened to them, the more I've come to understand that, because they just have an angle and they stick to the angle, and that's how you can tell something's propaganda, because they're not ever trying to understand things from multiple perspectives. It's always, this is how it is. This is the talking points, and I'm going to filter everything into the talking points. So it's good if you want to have alternative perspective from, Western media. But to me, that benefit has declined over time, because Western mainstream media, no one even believes anymore. So like now you have to start, there's less of a balancing act. Now it's like, wait, BRICS is actually the propaganda that a lot of people are getting flooded with at this point, because there is no BRICS alliance. The BRICS alliance is a sham. The BRICS alliance is a complete sham. My conscripted friend is still alive. He got pissed when I messaged him in Russia. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not learning Ukrainian. So this is the Ukrainian guy who has been picked up, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. It's I'm glad he's still alive. I'm glad he's still alive. This is somebody, SW's a mutual, and one of his friends got, after hiding in his apartment for a few years, got conscripted. But it's kind of interesting, right? It's like the commitment and consistency, psychological principle. He gets picked up by the Ukrainian army, drafted after hiding from them for a few years. And hey, he's committed to the cause. It is what it is, guys. It is what it is. So I don't know, 1.7 million Ukrainian losses. Either way, I can't see any scenario where the war isn't going to be fought to its conclusion. Ukraine is going to be Russian, or at least the vast majority of Ukraine is going to be Russian or under Russian control. It's not, Russia can't allow anything else. Russia can allow Western Ukraine to be absorbed in the European Union. It cannot allow anything east of the Dnieper River to be under any sort of NATO control. And it really cannot, if it's really being serious about its strategic aims, it can't allow Ukraine to have any Black Sea access, because that's a threat to its control in the Black Sea with NATO. So if they're going to allow any bit of Ukraine to continue to exist outside of Russian control, and by the way, Russia can annex parts of Ukraine and then allow the rest of Ukraine to exist as a country, but ultimately under Russian observation and jurisdiction and ultimately towards Russian absorption in the Union state like Belarus. That's a different thing. That's like titular sovereignty, but not really. So whichever way it takes, it'll take. But yeah, they're not going to give this up in Ukraine. They're not going to acknowledge legally Russian control over any of those territories because this is how they're able to continue their war. So we'll see. What do I think about Finland? Russia kind of had to allow that. What do you mean? Be more specific. What do you mean about Finland? Because Russia doesn't want Finland. I mean, Russia got Vyborg area after the Winter War, right? Or after the continuation war, rather, in World War II. I mean, once Finland had the sound of unconditional surrender. Oh, Finland's NATO now? Yeah, I mean, they can't. It's a very different issue because they never wanted to. Finland was already cooperating in a lot of ways with NATO, as was Sweden. It was not. It was it does technically extend the front, but it's not the same thing as Ukraine. Ukraine is a significant geopolitical threat to Russia, whereas Finland is like harassment. It's harassment. Russia hasn't controlled Finland since the Tsardom. Then Finland was technically part of the Russian Empire, although it had its own autonomy within the Russian Empire. So, a few other things here I want to answer. Will British males cease being civilized and proper and stand up for their country? We're shifting past voting. So, one thing that, if you go to the UK, especially outside of like proper like London pub stuff, whatever, you will see this. But Britain is a very class stratified country. It is not as proper as you'd think. You have a category of people who are very posh and very proper and very polite, right? And that's what we tend to think about when we think of English people. But there is a whole group of people, and these are the people, by the way, who would, they're the guys who are in the underbelly of those ships that went all around the world, built the British Empire, who are basically a bunch of angry, brawling alcoholics. And they're the ones who, it's that English working class, which is very large in number, not large in cultural dominance, but very large in number. They're the ones who have most experienced the effects of all of these rape gangs and whatever from Pakistan, etc. So, and they're the ones that are mostly being drawn to reform. I mean, I think it's penetrating deeper, but like that's like the American heartland, right? It's the English working class. So if you ever go to England and you're out late at night, I mean, these guys want to pick fights, and they want to pick fights over dumb stuff. I've almost gotten in fights with them before. One guy from Liverpool, some Scouser, called me a Muppet at one point in Poland. He was a dick. He kept opening the door to the restaurant. It was freezing cold. It was New Year's Eve. He kept opening the door to the restaurant over and over again. And all this cold air was pouring in. Everyone was getting annoyed. Eventually I got up and I went outside and I said, "Close the fucking door." And I closed the door. And then he came. He's like, "Oh, you want to go with my mic? You want to go with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, you're fucking rude. Close the door. There's a whole restaurant of people. You keep leaving the door open every time." And he was doing this like every 5 to 10 minutes because he was super drunk. He'd go out for a cig, whatever. Go out for a fag, right? So anyway, his friends apologized and took him out of there. But I'm just saying that's the English working class. Like they want to do this to me? Nah, they're the ones who are up. They're the ones who got their blood up right now. That's a fighting people right there. They love a good fight. They love a good fight. So they're coming up. They're coming up strong right now. They're gonna get their shit together, I think, right now. So, okay. So what else do we have to talk about here? Oh, other thing with Britain, bond yields. So the British bond market has been falling dramatically. Last 5 years, British bonds have lost like 50% of their return. And basically, whenever the bonds get to like a certain critical point in the market, it starts to cause a collapse in the government, right? That's the stuff that happened with Rishi Sunak. It's the stuff that happened with Liz Truss. And we're basically there again. So that's what I mean. We say it's going to be a few more years until the government has to change. I don't know. Like, Keir Starmer is really hated. And I just don't think that this government is going to last that long. I don't think it's going to happen. Especially because all of this stuff is connected. Let me see here. So John Bolton, as you guys know, was recently arrested. I got to tell you about John Bolton. I have met John Bolton. I have asked John Bolton a question on stage. He came to UPenn once upon a time. Bolton is a true piece of shit. I did not like him then. It's been interesting for me because Bolton is somebody who, like, I had this exchange with Bolton before I was politically aware, before I had any kind of awareness of what was going on. But I asked him a question in good faith about stuff in Israel, Palestine at that time period. Remember, as you guys know, I'm a Zionist shill, right? Because I'm not 24/7 pro Palestine or whatever. But I asked him a question that was, I don't remember the exact question, but at this point in time, because it's been almost 20 years, but it was essentially related to Israel's agenda. Like, I was pointing out that, well, if Israel was operating in good faith, what this is, why didn't they do extra, why wouldn't they do this to try to reach a settlement? And he just completely ignored the question. He didn't try to answer. He didn't try to explain anything. He just was like in shill mode. And I was like, yeah, you're a dick. Like, you're not here to actually try to do some sort of intellectual exploration or try to fix things. You are here to sell something. So I never liked John Bolton. And, then years later, he's in Trump's administration. I'm like, oh man, I hate John Bolton. So, all right, so let me put this back up here. John Bolton, as you guys know, was arrested or raided earlier in the week. He's going to get arrested. He's going to hang. That's my hope, is that John Bolton's going to hang. And I hope they don't let him shave his mustache either. I want to see him hanging with that mustache. And I'm sorry, guys, if this is this satire? Is this satire? I don't want it to affect my, I'm not calling for anything. I'm calling for justice within legal mechanisms, through military tribunals, whatever. I'm just having some fun here, okay? Let's not get too serious. This is just a show, okay? But it would be very enjoyable for me to see him with that mustache hanging. He's a real piece of shit. So John Bolton, serving as National Security Advisor in 2018, played a key role in convincing President Trump to reverse his September 17, 2018 order to declassify documents related to the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation, including materials involving FBI informant Stephen Halper. 4 days later, on September 21st, 2018, Trump was pushed into backing off the full declassification after input from the Department of Justice, FBI, and foreign allies raised concerns about potential damage to national security, intelligence sources, methods, and ongoing relationships with partners. Bolton advised Trump on these risks and coordinated the reversal. So, and then underneath this, you can see after the Mar-a-Lago raid, Bolton repeatedly talked about sensitive sources that were in the documents President Trump had. The documents now released to the public were Crossfire Hurricane documents. So this confirms the rumors that we had heard earlier, that the whole purpose of the Mar-a-Lago raid was not because Trump had some presidential documents. It's because Trump had the stuff about Crossfire Hurricane, which implicated their treason. So they were trying to get those documents and they didn't get them. Trump screwed him over. Trump hit him. Whatever Trump did, it's my fucking man right there. They were very frustrated because they couldn't get those documents. And that's what's going to happen to Bolton, because Bolton was involved with it and he was selling also a lot of the classified material for money. So Bolton's screwed. He'll be lucky if he just spends the rest of his life in prison. But here's the point of all this stuff. Stephen Halper's British intelligence, right? Crossfire Hurricane was laundered through Britain because that was the only way that they could justify the spying. They had to have an intelligence report. We couldn't spy on our own people, so we had to have Britain do it for us. That's the whole idea of these intelligence arrangements. You spy on our people, we'll spy on your people, and then we share information, and we can control everybody. Because you can't spy on our own people because it's illegal. So, point here is that I don't think Britain's government's going to make it because Britain government's implicated in all the scandals that are coming out in the United States. How are they supposed to defend all this stuff? What are they supposed to do? It's either they stay in power and we get them by the balls and fucking squeeze them as tight as we can, or they lose power. Probably it's a little bit of both. Like, we're squeezing you by the balls and then we're going to yank them off. But you don't know when we're going to yank them off. That's what I think is happening right now. So let me see here. What other talking points do I have? Because this is where we're at, guys. Like, everything's good. I'm not saying there's not going to be drama, but you got to be optimistic right now. You got to be positive about where things are going. Things are great. Don't be some doomer right now. Don't be upset that things aren't happening fast enough. We are not even into, like, there is so much that's going to get cleaned up over the coming years. There is so much that is going to get cleaned up over the coming years. And I really do think that AI, a lot of the problems, it's going to be an interesting world. It's going to be an interesting world, but I'm optimistic. I'm West is going to be fine. We're going to get ourselves back, and we need this. We need this because we need this in order to really look at ourselves and find ourselves again. We have forgotten who we are, and all of these trials, they are helping us to rediscover our history and our legacy. I mean, all these British flags, all these English flags flying all across the country. That's people who care about their heritage, care about their ancestry, and they're not going to be shamed about it anymore. And the shit lib cannot stop it. Okay? This shit lib, this guy who cannot bench 1 rep of 135 pounds, Zoran Mandami, this like Bugman archetype is done. It's not gonna win. It's not gonna win. Okay, I am not like Mr. Jacked. I'm in pretty good shape. I'm getting in better shape too, notwithstanding the champagne. I'm enjoying the champagne. It's like a Sunday thing now. I have a little family drink on Sundays, but otherwise it's like locked in mode now. I'm down 5 pounds the last month. I'm cutting down, guys. I'm cutting. You guys are going to see. You're going to see. But anyway, the point is that I'm not even like Mr. Jacked or anything. 135 is not, like, even when I was not in good shape, I could do a rep of 135. You know what I mean? I'm not 225. Don't get me wrong. I'm not doing 225 yet. That's where I want to be. Because I'm not like all about like I gotta go crazy on them. I understand, you know, I'm in my late 30s, rotator cuffs and stuff. I'm not trying to go crazy with the bench press. I've seen the forward guidance from people on it, but I'm gonna get a couple reps of, you know, I'd love to get like 5 reps at 225. If I can do 5 reps at 225, I'll be happy with that for a bench press. But the point is, like, 135 is really not a lot for a man, for a grown man. You can't do 1 rep. Very embarrassing. And then look at this. Zoran Mandami wants to end all misdemeanor charges. Easy pass for criminals. I just don't even, I don't, it's going to be all right. Don't worry about it. Let these people accelerate in their domains because they don't have power to win. And I want to make this last distinction before we close out, okay? I want to make this distinction. I'm not an accelerationist at this point in time from giving them actual real power, right? Because that's dangerous. When you give communists real power, they will kill you. It's not like something you want to do. It's like Nick Fuentes says, it would have been better if Kamala won. No, it wouldn't. We would be like Britain, except we would not have any, like Britain has America as backup. That's why the only reason these uprisings are really happening in Britain is because of what's happening in America, is that those patriots on the ground there, they feel safe enough to start coming out because they have in their mind a hope, and it's not an absurd hope that if the government gets too harsh on them, all these things that people have mentioned in the chat, like the taxes are out of control in Britain. They're out of control and they're getting worse and worse, right? Massive wealth tax through properties over 1 million threshold being proposed by the UK government. In Australia, for instance, there's going to be tax on unrealized capital gains, all the stuff that Biden / Kamala wanted in America. The reason these people feel comfortable in standing up is because they know that we have their back on some level. The memetics have changed. The morality of what they're doing has shifted. And I want to end on this because this is really the big thing right here. Okay. Real power is military, financial, and religious / moral, right? People think that like the religious power doesn't matter, but it does. Moral authority allows you to exercise economic and physical military power. If you don't have that, then you tend to bleed credibility really quickly. Doesn't mean that you can't use it, but it means that it becomes more dangerous, especially the brute force stuff, right? If you have moral authority, it's a different situation. Moral authority is really controlling the frame. It's controlling what is believed to be justified. And that's where that's where things have gotten at this point in time, is that the left has lost control of moral authority. They nag and they act like they're like, we're bad people because we're doing what we're doing, but nobody believes it anymore. And the reality is that they are bad people. Or at very least, they are self-hating people. And the problem that we've made is trying to be nice to self-hating people. People who hate themselves. I'm not talking about on an interpersonal level. Don't just be like a random dick to people for whatever. But politically speaking, like when you had Hegseth and you had Vance making fun of the protesters in DC when Trump declared martial law, which, by the way, he's extending to the cities. We've been talking about this for such a long time, right? Trump declaring martial law in the cities. Another reason I'm not scared of Mandami. But it's the moral authority portion that is so crucial here. It's so crucial here. Moral authority allows you to do what needs to be done. And this is the thing for me. And remember what I said earlier in the conversation. I'm still not a black and white thinker. I've known too many people who are immigrants, and they've immigrated in such good faith and such desire to become part of this culture and to contribute. That still doesn't mean that you can have every one of them come in, because then it's still not the country anymore. But at the same time, a lot of these people, they've really come with just pure intent, not to parasite, only to contribute. They wanted to be here. They didn't want to be there. They're not like, report recently in Northern Europe, so Scandinavia and Britain, you've got an immigrant from the Middle East. It was a Muslim immigrant, right? That they cost they cost the government £20,000 every year. Okay, so these are people who are not they're not contributing overall to the country, right? It's not about like who is like you're not moral for supporting this. Oh, well, they came from a really bad place. I don't care. If all of England is filled with people who are not from England, it's not England. And it will fall apart in a couple of generations anyway. But the point is that it's not England anymore. I've read a book on environmentalism by this guy. He's like a socialist, right? Lives in Vermont. But actually, it kind of like impacted my own thinking, because he's talking about biodiversity and trying to restore American forest. So much agreement and overlap with this. I mean, we destroyed Native American forest, right? But one of the things he talks about is all these invasive species of plants and trees, and how in order to create, and it takes time to actually create a healthy, native forest, a forest that actually has proper feedback mechanisms, you need to kill certain plants. You need to kill certain trees that are growing so that you can make way for seedlings from other trees that used to be dominant there, but that can't be there anymore. Or you have to kill deer, because the deer are destroying those other new seedlings from like the chestnuts and the red oak, and are only helping like beech trees to grow, beech trees which can't grow properly because they're all diseased, so they only grow short and stunted. It's very interesting, but it's not any different from any kind of, like, you can view it through the lens of human population. Like, you cannot have, like, if you have a population of a different species of deer, you can't just let white-tailed deer go everywhere. It's like, well, I can't kill a white-tailed deer because it's a deer. And by the way, I'm not talking about killing people. I'm just using an analogy, like relocate, whatever. Like, this is one of the things I've studied, because I'm a dork. I've studied a lot of obscure islands around the world, right? A lot of obscure islands around the world that had all these like indigenous fauna and bird populations that were destroyed because cats or rabbits from ships or rats got on the islands, destroyed all the fauna. And what did they do to preserve the biodiversity, or to what am I trying to say here? To fix the islands, right? Regenerate these old populations, they'd have to cull all the rabbits, all the cats. Sometimes they'd trap them and take them off. But the point is that they had to do this because they were killing the. So it's like, if you want to be empathetic, this is the point, right? You don't have to do any of this kind of stuff. Like, it's just, some people have a home they can go to, other people don't. If there is no English, if there's no England, where are English people going to go? They don't have a home. I don't care about an Afghan migrant who came there. It's like, well, what is he going to do? He's been here for 10 years, even. He just started his life here. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care. I don't care. If he really contributed and he put more in than he got out, then I think you have an argument that they can stay because they've contributed. They have not been parasitic on the system. Then that's when I think the actual conversation starts. That's when the real empathy conversation starts. Someone comes into the ecosystem and doesn't destroy the ecosystem. I think you can have a conversation then. Someone comes to the ecosystem and is purely just taking and parasiting off of it. They have no argument. I don't care what passport they have. I don't care what papers they have. And that's the conversation that people are having in general. Why is it that a bunch of Pakistanis can come to Britain, have rape gangs, take all government money, have lots of kids, do nothing, but can't be sent back? What's the argument? Well, they started a life here. Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? Okay? And if anybody who, whether they're Christian and they're trying to use Christian morality, which is total satanic inversion, no one gives a fuck about this. I don't give a fuck about it. And the people in England on the ground don't give a fuck about it. Because I have empathy for the people whose homes have been taken over and parasited on. That's my empathy. I'm an empathetic person. And that's the point here, is the moral argument. Where did the moral argument change? The moral argument is this now. The moral argument is that they are taking from people who don't have any other place to go. They are destroying a culture that has no other place to generate itself. So there's no moral argument to protect some refugee from some third world country. There is no fucking moral argument for it. And that's what the left lost. And that's where they're going to lose everything. Because once the moral argument is lost, then people can do things. And hopefully it's going to be peaceful. Hopefully it's going to be just like, look, you guys got to go back. Maybe they even get paid to go back. I don't even think a lot of people would care. But the point is, they do have to go back. If you came to a Western country and you didn't assimilate, you didn't learn the language, you didn't try to get into the culture, you didn't contribute net to the taxpayer, you have no argument to be able to remain in the country. It doesn't matter what your passport says. That's my position. And I will fight with people on the right about the people who did all those things, who came over, because I do want to be fair. But if you don't fit into that category, like, I don't care about your sob story. All right? Anyway, guys, I say this all with positive stuff, right? We're going places. Things are good. Cheers to you, Bosch. Cheers to Thomas Skinner. What a fucking name, Thomas Skinner. That's a name that you would see in the history books. So once upon a time. So we'll see what happens next. All right, guys. I love you all. And I will see you next time on COVID Cabal. Let's see what the future has in store for us.